Look at the dislike ratio of the Snow White trailer. Is it even worse? Okay, so it's almost at 1 million dislikes.
Today's video is about one of the messiest Hollywood situations in recent memory. Picture this. Someone gets handed the keys to one of the biggest entertainment empires in the world. No exaggeration. Disney-level money, a legendary story everybody knows, and the full power of that machine behind it. And somehow, it still crashes hard. That's exactly what happened here. Rachel Zegler didn't just walk into a major role, she walked straight into chaos, at least according to critics, analysts, and those brutal box office numbers that don't lie. And it didn't just fizzle out quietly, it spiraled into a financial disaster that reportedly cost Disney around $170 million, which is wild. And that number? That's just scratching the surface, because behind the scenes, things were getting way more hectic. Reports started dropping that executives were literally flying across the country trying to calm everything down, begging for one simple thing: stop posting on Twitter. Studio starts moving like that during a movie rollout. You already know something is seriously off. At that point, it stops being just about the movie and turns into a full-blown spectacle everybody's watching. The film at the center of all this drama? Disney's live-action Snow White. And this wasn't some small, low-key project slipping under the radar. The budget alone put it right up there with heavy hitters like Rogue One, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Beauty and the Beast. The expectations were huge, like zero room for mistakes type of huge. Everything was supposed to line up for a smooth blockbuster run, but instead, something strange started brewing early. The conversation around the movie started shifting before it even touched theaters, and the first warning signs popped up during interviews. That's when people really started asking questions about how things got this messy. To understand it, you have to rewind a bit. Rachel Zegler didn't just show up out of nowhere. Her entrance into Hollywood was massive. She was personally chosen by Steven Spielberg to star in West Side Story. That kind of opportunity? It's rare, like once-in-a-generation rare. Almost overnight, she became one of the most talked about rising stars in the industry, with all eyes locked on her next move.
Like, who has been the most exciting person for you tonight?
Oh my God.
Took the word out of my mouth.
Then came even more big roles, including The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. There were also whispers about her stepping into other major franchises, and from the outside, everything looked perfectly lined up. It felt like a fast track straight to the A-list. Then Disney cast her as Snow White, and that's where the energy started to shift in a noticeable way. Now don't forget, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs isn't just any film. That 1937 release basically helped build Disney into what it is today. It was their first full-length animated feature and one of the most iconic fairy tales ever put on screen. So yeah, expectations for this remake were through the roof. But during the press tour, interview clips started spreading online, and people picked up on something real quick. In those interviews, Zegler described parts of the original film as weird and outdated. She even called the prince a stalker and made it clear the classic love story wouldn't be the main focus this time.
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird.
Now look, actors sharing opinions isn't new at all, but saying all that while promoting a remake built on nostalgia, that hits different. It created an awkward tension almost instantly, and people couldn't stop talking about it. Fans who grew up loving the original suddenly felt like something they cared about was being brushed off, and that didn't sit right. Conversations started popping up everywhere, and once that door opened, people began watching every move a lot more closely. Then came another twist, because it didn't stop with interviews. During the marketing rollout, some of Zegler's social media posts started pulling serious attention online, and not in a quiet way. One moment in particular really took off when the first trailer dropped. You'd think all eyes would stay locked on the movie, right? Not this time. Under the trailer post, Zegler shared political commentary, and just like that, boom, the entire conversation flipped. Instead of people breaking down scenes, visuals, or excitement for the film, they were deep in debates over her post. The movie itself almost became background noise overnight, which is wild for a project this big. Behind the scenes, reports claimed Disney executives were watching everything very closely, and definitely not in a relaxed way. There were rumors about urgent meetings, requests to take posts down, and even attempts to guide social media behavior. When things reach that level, you already know the pressure is serious. From Zegler's point of view, it seemed like she was just speaking on topics she cared about. But from Disney's side, it was a completely different situation. When you're running a family film with a massive budget, the mission is simple: reach as many people as possible. Anything that potentially narrows that audience can quickly turn into a major concern. That's when things reportedly started shifting behind the curtain. Reshoots were scheduled, changes were being discussed, and suddenly the rollout didn't feel smooth anymore. It started to look like a production trying to steady itself before things went too far. Then another signal popped up during early test screenings. According to reports, audiences kept pointing out one major issue: the lack of a traditional romance in a fairy tale that's always been built around that exact element.
You talk shit, it's gonna come back. There's something called cause and effect. We don't just sit around and say, yeah, we grew up watching this movie called Snow White in all these other countries, and all of a sudden you show up and we have to eliminate all the memories of these young girls who grew up wanting to have an experience like that.
It caught people off guard, no question. It wasn't what a lot of viewers expected at all, and that surprise turned into concern real fast. So what happened next? More changes during reshoots. Reports say additional scenes were added to bring back some of that classic storyline people were looking for. That alone shows how much the direction was shifting in the middle of everything, which is never a calm situation for a project this big. By the time everything finally wrapped, the numbers had grown to a massive level. The total cost reportedly climbed to around $336 million once you factor in production changes, delays, and marketing adjustments. At that point, this wasn't just a movie anymore. It turned into a high-stakes gamble playing out in real time. And to really understand how big this situation became, you have to look at the numbers, because they are seriously wild. This film ended up costing more than Guardians of the Galaxy, more than Rogue One, and even more than Disney's live-action Beauty and the Beast, which made over $1 billion worldwide. So yeah, the pressure here wasn't normal. It was on another level completely. But when Snow White finally hit theaters in March 2025, things didn't go the way Disney expected at all. Opening weekend brought in around $42 million domestically, and even that was below their already lowered expectations. That's when people really started paying attention. Then the international numbers came in, and they didn't turn things around either. The global total slowly climbed to about $205 million before the theatrical run wrapped up just a few weeks later, which raised even more questions. Now on paper, $205 million might sound decent, but that's not how this business works at all. Here's the part a lot of people don't realize. When you buy a movie ticket, theaters take a big cut. Studios usually end up with about half. So from that $205 million, Disney may have only seen around $100 million come back to them, which changes everything. Now compare that to a production that reportedly cost well over $270 million, even after tax breaks. And suddenly the situation looks rough, really rough. Industry estimates started spreading that losses could be pushing close to $170 million, just like that, turning this into one of the most talked about financial setbacks in recent memory. This film ended up landing among the biggest financial disappointments in Disney's live-action remake lineup. And the second those numbers hit the internet, everything blew up fast. Reddit threads went into overdrive, with people breaking down timelines, pulling receipts, and connecting dots like a full investigation was underway. Old interview clips started resurfacing, screenshots spread across Twitter and other platforms, and suddenly it felt like the entire situation was being re-examined in real time. It turned into a full-on internet deep dive overnight. One of the most viral trends? Side-by-side comparisons. On one side, you had confident moments from the early press tour. On the other, headlines calling the film a box office disaster. And the captions? They all carried the same sharp energy. Congratulations, you played yourself. Harsh or not, that was the tone taking over online conversations, and it wasn't slowing down. Then people noticed something else, and this part really stood out. Disney itself went unusually quiet after the release, which is not what people expect from them. Normally, when Disney drops a live-action remake, they go all out. Theme park tie-ins, character meet and greets, merch everywhere. Just look at The Little Mermaid. You can meet different versions of Ariel inside the parks right now. But with Snow White, nothing on that level. No major character rollout, no big park push connected to the remake. For fans paying attention, it felt like Disney was quietly stepping back, creating distance without making a big announcement. Meanwhile, Rachel Zegler kept speaking openly in interviews. She suggested that some of the criticism came from being held to different standards as a woman in the industry. Later, she appeared in Glamour magazine as one of their Women of the Year, and in that feature, she made it clear that actors should feel free to speak openly about political topics. And just like that, the conversation got even bigger and more intense. At this point, it wasn't just about a movie anymore. It turned into a wider debate about celebrities, social media, and how much influence those platforms really have on massive studio projects.
Friday, the Daily Mail obtained and published what it said were exclusive photos from the set of Disney's new, woke Snow White live-action remake. As we know, Disney is in the process of slowly cannibalizing itself, eating away at its own legacy until soon, mercifully, there will be nothing left. They are recreating all of their own classic films, releasing new, lifeless remake versions that are similar to the old versions, except shorn of all the charm and creativity and humor and beauty and all that stuff you don't need. They ask themselves, hey, what would our best films be like if they didn't have any of the qualities that made them special? Each remake has earned increasingly diminishing returns, and so Disney responds by frantically blaming every new failure on racism and bigotry.
By 2026, attention started shifting toward what she would do next. Reports said she was working on a smaller independent comedy called She Gets It From Me, which caught people's attention for a different reason. Now, indie films aren't unusual for actors at all, but compared to where her career seemed to be heading just a few years earlier, huge franchises, major blockbuster roles, it definitely felt like a noticeable shift in direction. There were also reports about her performing in London's West End, showing a different side of her career. Then another headline popped up, a possible biopic where she might play music icon Gloria Estefan, and just like that, people started talking all over again. But here's the thing, even that project didn't have a finished script or confirmed funding at the time, so whether it actually moves forward is still up in the air. Now before we end this thing, if you've been following this breakdown, make sure you hit subscribe, drop a like, and stick around because we're pushing toward that 1,000 subscriber milestone, and every single click really counts. Looking back at this entire timeline, one question keeps coming up again and again. What if things had gone differently? What if the press tour stayed locked in on just the film? What if the interviews leaned into nostalgia instead of criticism? And what if the online conversation never drifted away from the story itself? Would the outcome have changed? Maybe, or maybe not. Live-action remakes already come with heavy skepticism, and a lot of people feel these stories didn't need to be remade in the first place. But there's a big difference between a movie quietly underperforming and one surrounded by controversy months before it even hits theaters. That kind of spotlight changes everything, and once the narrative shifts, it's hard to pull it back. And here's the final twist in all of this. Despite everything that happened with Snow White, Hollywood hasn't slowed down one bit. Disney is still pushing forward with the same formula, no hesitation. More live-action remakes are already lined up, with projects like Moana and Tangled reportedly on the way. Same strategy, same blueprint. Classic story, massive budget, and the hope that nostalgia pulls audiences back in again. So maybe the real question isn't just about one actress or one movie. Was Snow White just a troubled production, or was it a warning sign for where Hollywood could be heading next? Now it's your turn. What do you think really happened here? Was Rachel Zegler treated unfairly, or did the rollout play a bigger role than people expected? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you want to see more breakdowns like this.